Okay, so to begin with, as we all know our topic, we all know about internet. It has been the greatest creation of mankind. It has an endless supply of information, knowledge. You can learn thousands of things on internet. The most and important thing that we have got from internet is the connectivity that we have with our people, the communication with our loved ones, the things that we can share with just a click of our fingertips. Using the GPS, we can find any place in this world. We can pay bills by just clicking one button. And I know one thing that most of you would not love to do, but work from home is one that is available now because of it. And lastly, something that we use like day in and day out and use words like Netflix and chill. So yes, Netflix and Amazon Prime and so many other applications that are nowadays available for entertainment purposes. So yes, internet is like a boon. We have been told not to see bad things. We have been always told not to hear, not to say. And now there is an addition to this where we are supposedly not supposed to be using it too. So while something is a boon, it usually is a curse too when it is in excess. And this is where we are looking at. Now, let's get a basic understanding of what is addiction. Addiction is a compulsive need for the use of a habit forming substance. It can be anything, like, for example, cigarettes, drugs, or food, coffee. And today we will be talking about the internet. So, me, Dr. Rahul Khemani, a consultant psychiatrist, and my dear friend Margika Kadam, a psychologist, will be working on a far more overlooked destructor called as internet addiction. So, to begin with, let's start with a few frequently asked questions that we always come across on the internet. Is internet addiction a real thing? Yes, I understand a lot of you have doubts about it, but yes, it's a very real thing. We come across cases of internet addiction almost on a daily basis. A diagnosis now over here, it is officially in our textbooks. The DSM-5 and ICD does not have internet addiction per se as a diagnosis, but one type of internet addiction, that is gaming, is given in the textbooks, and very soon the discussion is going on about adding it in the books too. Is it bad? Definitely, and we'll be showing it to you why and how. It is a disorder. Disorder means a problem which has a complex of symptoms, and this classically has those symptoms. So, to begin with, let's go and understand what are the various ways internet addiction is seen in this world. So, firstly, and the most commonly, you have always seen yourself either scrolling on Facebook or posting pictures on Instagram, putting up a tweet on Twitter. Amitabh Bachchan got admitted during COVID. Thousands of tweets went, thousands will be a small number. I think millions of tweets went out. So, yes, everybody, I believe, is almost a social media addict, especially nowadays. And this primarily is something related to this term, this anagram. This is FOMO. I hope everyone knows what is FOMO. FOMO is the fear of missing out. This primarily is what causes us to get in onto social media. And I could give you a personal example over here where a very close friend of mine was not using Instagram, and immediately just when he saw me and a few friends of his using Instagram pictures, posting pictures on Instagram, asked me, how do we use this Instagram? So this is what we call, where we suddenly, with that fear that, oh my god, everyone else is doing it, where are we in the picture, we feel that we miss out on a lot of things. Coming to the next thing, that is again something that is going across worldwide, is information overload. This is, yes, sounds something that is essential, but as we said, everything that is in excess is always disturbing. So, and we can consider the current situation, that is the COVID situation, where you can see that people are just browsing through, trying to get information on COVID, how much is the spread today, how many deaths have happened. in a way, partially it is helping you, but when you constantly do it, there are people who constantly just click on that Google icon to get updates from the news about what is happening in China, what is happening in America. But as we said, there is a designated time to get information about things, and we can't just keep on clicking on the internet for everything that you come across, because that creates a cycle of anxiety in you. Next is another thing that is commonly seen. Over here, I'll tell you that I had this patient of mine who came, who was in his early 20s. He came to me. He used to surf the internet browsing pornography. And at a point, I believe, since this is the modern world, I believe that yes, almost everyone would have tried that once in their lifetime. But this particular boy was disturbed because his point of surfing pornography was not just limited in his private time, but it extended into his job, it extended into whenever he was with his friends, it extended while he was even surrounded by family, and he could not stop himself from doing it. So this is a type called as cybersex, where you constantly seek or constantly try to search for pornography and use it. Coming to the one that is fun for everyone, yes, I know everyone loves this, and this is something that has become popular in the last few years, where initially Amazon began with new deals and things that you can buy online for so cheap and so easily. And this is where the cycle began, where you started buying things thinking that you might have use of it at a later date. Let's buy it, it's so cheap right now. And that created a cycle of never ending buying, and this type is exactly called as online shopping. Now over here, I like to add one more thing that happens, is that sometimes while occasionally surfing through the internet, we come across some sites where they say that you can play games like, I think Indian games that we commonly play are rummy or poker, and we just get engrossed into it thinking that they are asking us to bet very small, like just 100 bucks, 200 bucks, which begins small, just like how actually gambling does, and you go on increasing the amount of gambling to the point where you think that, come on, I'm going to win, next game I'm going to win, and you constantly keep doing it up to the point where you don't even need to go to Goa or Vegas to play. You just can sit at home with the use of your internet and constantly gamble. Wow, this one is, I think, one which a lot of teenagers and adolescents will be able to relate. I had this young girl who came to me, who had recently broken up with her boyfriend, and she was like, I am suddenly just hooked on to these apps, these dating apps, where I just constantly feel the need to right swipe or left swipe, and that gives me kind of a validation when people like me on those dating apps, where they send me requests and ask me that, would you like to date me and would you like to meet me. So over here, this type is called as the online relationship type, where you can see that apps like Tinder and Bumble are available for getting you into a date or into a relationship very easily. And it just begins with just validating that, fine, I'll do it just once, but it is a never ending cycle again, and you just get hooked on into it. And lastly, but the most favorite of every child, is where you are just hooked on into it. Over here, again, I'll tell you something from an experience that I've experienced. I had this young boy's parents who visited me. This parents told me, they told me that the child is suddenly constantly playing game, and initially they thought that it's okay, like he has a little time, he's studying on time, so it's fine. But one day, instead of studying for his exam, which was on the next day, he was constantly playing. And that is the point where the parents told him that, can you just put your phone or iPad away, and let's just focus on studying for now, and then maybe after the exams you can play. And immediately the child got fired up, and he just started scolding the parents, shouting at them. He even pushed the father, which is the point where the parents realized that this was something that was totally out of hand. And then they visited me. This type is online gaming, and the most common game that we all have heard about is PUBG or Call of Duty. I know. So this is again one type where you constantly need the urge to play this game. So now that we have understood what are these different ways that internet addiction presents, let's look at how it happens, how it presents. I'll ask my dear friend Margika to catch up on this now.
Yes. Hi, so let's try and reflect. Let's look inside. Now that we've understood what are the types of the internet addiction, now let's get into the dynamics of internet addiction, and let's see whether we have these things, are we getting into these things or not. So I would like you to grab the notepad and pen and mark yes or no for the following questions. So let's keep this as a purely reflective activity. This is not going to be any test or anything, right? Next. Rahul can, yeah, got it. So now, as you can see, something is going on constantly over here. So this is your mind that is constantly thinking about what do I post next? Like I'm eating right now, let me take a picture and let me post it later with this caption. Then I will get these many likes. Then I will comment it like this. So you're preoccupied with your virtual world when you're indulging into something like, let's say, studies, eating, or anything, right? So two unrelated thing, but you're constantly focused about your virtual image, right? You're preoccupied with it. You're not able to focus on the task at hand. You're thinking either about what to do on the internet, or whatever you have done on the internet, what kind of reaction is it getting to you. So you can just make a note that are you preoccupied or not. Now next slide please. Over here, so now you might uh, come to a point that you will feel that, okay, I'm using internet way too much. Let me use it for like 15 minutes, then I'll put it down, then I'll get back to studies. But it often happens that you get caught up into it. You will find yourself still using the internet after like 1.5 hours also. And then there's going to be a regret that, oh, I made a promise to myself that I'll use it for 15 minutes, yet I couldn't fulfill. So that regret, you're not doing anything about it because you're going to end up doing the same thing the next day. So that's the concept of uncontrolled usage. You want to control it, but it has probably gone beyond your control. Next. Okay, so in the concept of addiction, whenever you take away the stimuli, or when you stop using it, it leads to a reaction, which is a very natural reaction that the body gives. It's a reaction called withdrawal, right? So it's similar in the internet addiction, where if you just take away the gadget, if you just stop, or you inflict this rule on yourself that, oh, I am not going to use internet after so and so time. Like strictly, one fine day you just wake up and decide that I don't want to get into it, so you stop it. So that's when your body might get into a withdrawal reaction. So your withdrawal reaction can be seen through for in the forms of, let's say, mood fluctuations, where you're suddenly getting irritated and no one is able to pinpoint that what could be the reason. You might start getting aggressive in the way you're talking or in your mannerisms. You might also get sleeplessness, because now you had this scheduled pattern that I'll go off to sleep while watching a video. I'll go off to sleep with some chatter going at the back of your mind. Like I have someone in family who sleeps only when the TV is on. Now they are unable to acquire sleep without any sounds, right? So that's the level of addiction. So if you just take it away, the person is going to show some kind of reactions which are due to the withdrawal. Next. Okay, now let me tell you a story of a 5-year-old child. Let's call this child Rahul for time being. So this 5-year-old child was asking his mother that, Ma, give me phone. I want to call my Masi. So Ma thought, okay, good child, wants to communicate with Masi during the lockdown. So Ma gives the phone. Ma gets busy in her own work. Child takes the phone nicely, calls up Masi. Ma can hear the sounds. The phone is on speaker. Then Ma gets into her work. The conversation goes on, and there comes a point when Masi starts noticing something different in these calls that are happening off late. She finds that my child, this Rahul, is probably not looking at, like, not paying attention to the conversation. The child sounds inattentive. Child is just like ha ha ha. Masi had to repeat everything twice, thrice, whatever. So she spoke with the mother, told her that something is going on. Why don't you check the child? Like, why don't you get understanding of it? So what Ma did, Ma gave the phone to Rahul next time he wanted to make a call, and Ma, instead of getting completely engrossed in her work, she started monitoring the child. So what, to her surprise, she noticed that child was calling Masi genuinely, as the child suggested, child expressed. Child has put the phone on speaker. The next step child does it. Child goes on the gaming app or whatever gaming thing the child has on phone, and child was nicely playing the game. Hence, the inattention was coming up. So that's called concealing the usage. So if someone is catching you, you might just say that no, I was not using internet for pleasure. I was doing using it for the work. I was doing it for study. Do you find yourself in similar situations? Do you always give an excuse that I'll do it more? Ma, just like don't shout at me. I am not doing time pass on a laptop. I'm doing research, right? So that's the concealing for all of us. Now, next slide, please. All right. So, like in every addiction, there is going to be a threshold that gets met with every usage. So, if you're using your internet for like 5 minutes, no one does that for sure. If you're using your internet 45 minutes, next time you might feel the urge to use it even more, right? So every time the threshold increases, you need to have more and more stimulation to reach the same amount of pleasure, to get the same amount of happiness, satisfaction. So that's, do you find yourself that earlier I was playing PUBG only for half an hour, now I'm just playing it for hours and hours together? Next slide. All right. So your virtual platforms slowly and gradually start replacing your reality. So this becomes your escaping point where you're trying to escape, you're trying to avoid solving your problems, and you're indulging yourself into like social platforms, into online things. For example, if someone scolds me, let's say my teacher or my boss gave me like real bad shouting, so instead of me going back home reflecting on it, instead of me trying to resolve the issue, I might say, how can that person do this to me? And since that person is superior to me, let me switch on the PUBG and let me kill more enemies, thinking I have killed my superior, right? So that's the escapism where you're trying to avoid solving your real life problems with the help of your internet or online platforms. Next slide. So whatever activities that you were interested in earlier, so you could have been a very reputed uh, painter in the family. You could be well-known person in your vicinity for your singing skills. But now no one hears you singing or painting. Everyone says that, oh, adulting is happening. The other option, the other face of the reality could be that you have just lost interest in those activities because you found something that was more stimulating. You started giving this activity more attention, hence it has just taken over your earlier interest and activities, right? So there's going to be loss of interest. Just think about whatever activities you were liking to do before the existence of internet. Are you still in touch with those or not? Next. Okay. So I want you to think about relapse like it's a magnet. The more you're trying to go away, you try to go away from it, more you get pulled back towards it, right? Because you are you might just give an excuse that I'll just go surf, I'll go online just to check this email, I'll just put this application, and there after like posting or putting your application, you will find yourself caught up again with online surfing and the other criteria that Dr. Rahul had explained earlier, right? So you're going to rationalize why you're using it, you're trying to conceal it, but that's relapse, my friend. You tried that thing for 2 successful days, but again, on the third day, you failed. You might feel like a failure over here. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, when I say that you might have tried it for 2 days, you might have like made up your mind that I'm going to indulge myself into something new, something that is offline based activity. You get into it, but you find that probably that activity is not as appealing as my social media game, as my PUBG, whatever. And then you find that you're not getting that kick, and then you leave that activity, then you are not interested into it, and then the relapse happens when you're again spiral down to the previous base of getting hooked on to the internet. All right, so over here it's very important that when we are talking about failures to quit internet, when we are talking that you're trying your best but you're not able to stop it, there might come a point where you feel conflicted, where you feel that, am I a loser in my life because a simple thing like stopping or curbing my internet use, I'm not able to do it. So that gets personalized. You start labeling yourself into things like, am I stupid? Am I not able to like stop my internet use? So I might be bad over here. We have to understand that it's very easy to label yourself onto some certain things that might be that might come as a conflict to all of us, right? Next slide. Okay, there are some scales that are available to check the internet addiction. Most famously used one is by Dr. Kimberly Young. You might just check upon the internet. Though we say there is no formal diagnosis for it, clinicians are using certain tests to find out the level of the indulgence into the online world. Next. Now that we understood how does your internet addiction look like, let's understand why is it taking place. So there is a biopsychosocial model that plays a very important role for you not able to stop your internet use, for you to feel conflicted with yourself that despite me trying my best, why am I not able to stop it. So let's understand from Dr. Rahul that what is this biopsychosocial model that plays a very crucial role in internet addiction. Over to you, Dr. Rahul. You can unmute yourself, please.
Wonderfully understood from Margika how this is affecting everybody, and I hope everyone has put down in their notepads which parts of these things that you could connect with. Now that we know what is happening, let's understand why. And why am I answering this question is because literally everyone who visits me has this question on their mind. But why, doc? Why did this happen to me? What did I do specially that happened to me and not to my neighbor or not to my friend or not to my wife? Anybody, basically. So let's get a concept of what is basic addiction and why does it happen. So to begin with, all of you have seen this symbol. This symbol is a sign that is seen when you refresh or when you are having internet buffering. This is a common thing that happens whenever you have low speed internet or your Wi-Fi is not working. And how do you feel at the moment? You feel very anxious. Basically, this sign, this circle that is happening is meant to stimulate or activate that part of your brain that makes you feel that you need to wait for something. And whenever you wait for something, it's just like how you wait for a birthday surprise, that your friends are going to surprise you or your family is going to surprise you. And that kind of happiness or that kind of kick when you are suddenly surprised by people is the same thing that happens when at the end of this buffering or this refresh, you see something new. So it is very similar to a jackpot machine where whenever we pull the lever, we immediately feel that rush in our brain. Because what happens is that our brain is finding something unexpected, and it's a reward at the end of the day. So yes, you feel excited about it. So over here, I'll explain you a very small pathway called as the reward pathway, which is the reason why we generally get addicted to anything. And then in particular, I'll speak about the internet as well. So as you can see that there is this part in the brain, which is in the midbrain, where this chemical, this is the culprit over here, which causes addiction. So this chemical is released. Now this chemical has a function of causing pleasure or making you feel high. And this is the chemical that is released when you either smoke a cigarette or you drink alcohol, or again when you click on the internet. What does this chemical do? It gets released immediately over here in the midbrain itself, in a part which is connected to your memory. So whenever something happens that makes you feel nice, for example when you drink alcohol and you feel a momentary high at the moment, your this chemical goes and tells that part of the brain that this is fun, let's remember this because I want to do it again. The second thing that happens is that it goes to this frontal part of the brain, which is responsible for controlling your movements and controlling the way you behave. Now, again, this is the same thing that happens, that this memory goes and stimulates that part of your brain to go to a bar or go to a pub or go and order alcohol. The same thing happens on the internet, where once this chemical is released, it goes and stimulates that part of the brain to pick up the phone and keep surfing the internet and find out things that you want to see, right? What happens is that this dopamine, when it is released, it automatically causes this pleasure. For example, I think everyone would have heard about this story where this was an experiment that was done, where a rat was kept in a cage and not given any food, and it kept on roaming around this cage. In the same cage there was a small lever that was kept, where if the rat by chance pressed this lever or a button, a food pellet would come in the cage and it would eat immediately. Now, what happened is that whenever it would press the button, there would be a dopamine rush in the brain and suddenly it would eat. This is the same thing that happens when you see a piece of cake, or you see you hug a family member or a loved one, and you have this dopamine rush. But the amount of dopamine rush that happens with these gamings or this likes that you get on Instagram is much more, and this is the reason why you get addicted to this, right? Now coming to another part which is responsible, that particularly why do teenagers and adolescents get into this addiction. Now what happens is that we all know that the brain develops from backwards front. So the frontal part is responsible for our main behavior, for the way we think smart and we act responsibly, while the backward brain that grows is primarily all about emotions. So this is the reason why these teenagers are not able to control their emotions, they do not have the right amount of decision making to know how much they should and how much they should not. And this is the reason why teenagers and adolescents are more prone to develop addiction. And this is what exactly happens, that you are at a point where you are extremely vulnerable. You have this low self-esteem, and what you do is, I had this case of a housewife who, there are so many games available on the internet where you can develop an avatar of yourself, a persona of yourself. So this lady who visited me, she was a housewife. She would cook meals for her children, for her mother-in-law, for her husband, wait for them to come back from office, school, and day-to-day activities going on round and round. Nobody appreciating her. She started feeling a little low. And then what she did was, one day on the internet, she created an avatar of a queen. And this avatar had a nice jewelry, a nice necklace, a lot of things that she can buy, and a lot of places that she can visit, a lot of men who appreciate the way she looks as an online avatar. So this made her feel important, this made her feel nice. And this is where the concept of low self-esteem comes, where it pulls you towards the internet. It makes you feel that you have a different identity on the internet, and this is more appreciated than in real life. Next is now the psychological reasons of why this is happening. And this is a classical personality type within which there is high impulsivity and novelty seeking, which makes you run towards this internet. What happens is that because of this high impulsivity, you have this constant urge and need to use your reactions and your emotions, and internet is the best platform for that, where you're using your hands, that is kinesthetic, you're using your eyes, and you're using your ears, and you're constantly in motion, so that impulsivity is fulfilled, and you constantly gain new things, so there is novelty too. So this kind of personality is extremely prone to getting into addiction again. I think this one will be a favorite picture for most of the kids. Yes, it is one of the games that even I play, but in control, trust me. So over here there is this concept of positive and negative reinforcement. What happens is when a child plays a game, for example the same game PUBG, and he plays it extremely well with a group of friends, what happens is that his friends appreciate it. They even tell him that he's one of the best people in the world, while at the same time at his home he's not getting anything, any such appreciation. He's like this guy who scores averagely in school. He doesn't help anyone at home for any with any work or anything. He's not appreciated. So automatically, because of this positive reinforcement, that he's being appreciated on the internet for things that he's excellent at, and for the things that he's not appreciated, he gets pulled into this internet, into this addiction. It could be gaming, it could be anything else as well. The next part over here, the next concept that we come across, understanding why this is happening, is the social reasons. Now, a child's brain, from the time he's born till the time of approximately 10 to 15 years, it's like an absorbent material. It absorbs everything it sees, and whatever. So let me go back to the time where I maybe my generation, I would say, where we were born into a time where our parents would read books, would go out for walks, read daily newspapers in the morning, exercise daily, communicate socially with their friends and everybody directly, not on the phone. But recently now what has happened is that these kids are seeing their parents constantly on the phone, on the iPad, on the internet, using it for something or the other, clicking pictures of the children. So what happens is automatically they start modeling us. They start following us because they believe, because we are the first teachers for our children. And if we do something, they automatically are going to follow us. They're going to repeat us. So they automatically start using the internet too. One more concept over here that works is that these parents, and unfortunately because of the current circumstances, every parent has to work, or both the mother as well as the father. So there is no time for the child, and automatically when you're busy in work, you just need to give your child something so that the child would stop crying or stop asking for attention. And the most easiest thing that is available is just give a phone. I remember a day when I was traveling in the train and I was sitting across a child. I think that was the time when Temple Run was very popular. And there was this 6 or 7 year old child sitting in front of me. And I just finished one game of Temple Run and I kept it on my pocket, the phone. And I saw this other child playing Temple Run and I couldn't believe the score when I saw it. Oh my God. He had outpassed my score by at least 5 times. And I was just looking at the child and imagining how can he do that. So this is what I'm saying, that these child are good at absorbing. So yes, they develop good skills over here also, we'll be speaking about that. But primarily we are talking about the source where this internet addiction started. After we grow, we start coming in the community, we start meeting with friends, and this is what we come across, where our friends are playing. Now let's come back to the example of PUBG, where your friends are playing PUBG. Maybe they don't even need to say that come on friend, let's play PUBG. The point that they are playing makes you feel that yes, you want to join them too, you want to be a part of that same circle too. It's unspoken. It automatically pulls you towards using your phone or internet. This, now that we understand how it is happening, let's get to what is the consequences of this. Now you might ask me that fine, we are addicted to internet, we are pulled into internet, we spend most of our time on the internet, so what? We need to understand what are the consequences over here. So I believe this is the scenario that every person in the world is at right now, where even though you are doing something important as eating, you are constantly either on the phone or using your computer for working, or most commonly, something that is absolutely adverse is using your phone while you're driving and you can't control it. And I have heard of so many accidents occurring because of the same thing. So you believe that yes, you are good at multitasking, and I might agree to that as well, but it comes at a risk always. And you need to understand that you need to be more focused at what you have right now. Coming to the second thing that happens is our biorhythm. Now most of us don't believe in this concept of biorhythm because this is arbitrary, but we need to get to the point where sleeping on time, waking up on time, eating our meals on time is an extremely important cycle because it maintains us, it keeps us healthy. And this internet makes us sleep late, it makes us wake up late, it gets our sleep disturbed. So many of you people would know that the phone keeps on pinging while you're sleeping in the afternoon or you're sleeping in the night, and you just wake up to see, okay, what message has come across. So basically your rhythm gets disturbed. This disturbance in rhythm can lead to other mental health problems such as depression, such as anxiety, such as other general even stress disorders such as things. So we need to always know that we need to keep this rhythm in check always. This is one word I think we have heard so many times that we are never going to forget it till the time we just go. So social distancing is a concept that is, yes, useful right now in this COVID times, but just let's go back 6 months back where this COVID was not there. And still, I believe that most of you would relate that whenever you used to go to a party, you would automatically, rather than, being social with your friends, talking with people around you, making new acquaintances, you'll be talking to someone on the internet, you'll be just using your social media, you'll be just scrolling through it, and you can't stop yourself. So automatically you have started distancing yourself from people around you who are important in your life. Next comes a part that is extremely personal to you in your own life. Now, over here, even though you are in the same space, in the same bed, a husband and wife, I have heard so many occasions where they don't communicate, they don't connect with each other. They are more hooked on over their internet, and you lose that connection with your better half. You are more engrossed in taking pictures and posting it on Instagram about each other, showing that both of you are together. But at the end of the day, where is the real connection? So this affects you very strongly because, as I said, that what happens is, as I was explaining the causes, that when the dopamine rises in the brain, there is another chemical called as serotonin, and this serotonin reduces in the brain. The serotonin is responsible for your mood, it is responsible for your social interaction, and when dopamine is rising and so serotonin is reducing, automatically your addiction is rising and your serotonin is going away. So this again leads to a stage where you start feeling depressed, you feel very anxious, you feel very nervous all the time. So now that you have understood the consequences, let's get to the point on what we are supposed to do. So I bring back my dear friend Margika to tell you that how do you begin your intervention into this. Over to you, Margika. I think maybe my friend is facing a common issue on the internet. She might have logged out.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you're audible. So she's back and we'll begin. Yes.
All right. Yeah, so let's understand the intervention part. After understanding the biopsychosocial model, let's understand what is in our control at this particular time. Like, you, I understand that you want to help yourself. I understand that you have this innate urge of helping others who are suffering from it. So let's understand the doable things over here at this pretty point. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So, this concept of being a lifeguard for yourself or for someone else, for that, there has to be an insight. The person has to know that they are drowning so they can ask for help, right? So, first, you have to make awareness. Like, you all lovely people over here are attending this webinar. It is itself kind of an awareness. So, like, more and more people hear about internet addiction, how it works, the more it's going to be a domino effect where we are going to reach out to many people, right? So first and foremost, we need to take steps like reflecting on upon ourselves, encouraging others to do the same. Then only one can recognize, okay, there is something that is probably maladaptive, malfunctioning, and I need to work towards it. Then they can ask a lifeguard ki bhai mujhe save karo, I am drowning, right? Go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So, starting with the young ones, you have to supervise their internet use, right? So, like Dr. Rahul explained, the brain is developing in a way that the frontal region where the decision making happens is not yet developed. It's in the developing state. The brain that they have is predominantly emotion focused, right? So you need to supervise when you're giving them such a thing as internet, because you know everything is at the access of one click. Your pornography, your graphic videos, your violent movies, violent picture, everything is away just with a click. Nowadays you don't even need a click. There is the voice search option available for kids, right? So the young ones, 5 year 6 year old, can also be on internet. And if you're leaving them probably unmonitored, unsupervised, you never know that what might allure them and what they might be getting into, right? So you don't need to hover on them constantly like a CCTV camera. No, you will not do that. You will be around them. You're not just going to isolate the young ones. I'm talking about the 6 7 8 year old children where the habit formation might start happening, right? So it's very easy for them to get stuck into the attractive stuff. So we need to um, pay attention to that. When you find them getting addicted to the gadget, when you find anyone who is getting into habits of having preoccupations about internet usage, you are not going to take the gadget away. Okay, that's a complete no no. Like we say that do not hit a child, similarly do not take the gadget away immediately. You need to make some kind of provisions before you do that, right? You are just taking a part of their life away without any announcement. Expect some kind of revolts to happen, right? And there no one can help the situation. So when you want to stop someone's internet usage, when you want to stop your own internet usage, you are not just going to completely take it away, because this is the time where the withdrawal symptoms might start showing. The person might get aggressive, person might, like Dr. Rahul said, the child shoved away his father, right? That was an aggressive reaction. So we don't want that to happen. So no extreme steps over here. So instead of that, what can be done over here is, can you go to the next, please? We need to support each other, right? Remember, it's not a tug of war between them versus us, right? It's all of us together. Some of us just fall prey to the biopsychosocial model. Some of us were at the safe distance, and hence we can probably try to help them. But remember, it's going to be a two-way communication, not a one-way directive communication where you're telling them internet usage is wrong, just stop it because of blah blah blah. No, need to understand what is leading them to use the internet so much, right? What are the other provisions that can be done as a compensatory mechanism to give the satisfaction, give the pleasure to the person, right? So for that, we need to speak empathically with them. You need to understand where is the internet usage is coming from. Go to the next one, please. This is going to be my tip 101 for internet usage, to be mindful. Like we see, we have to be mindful. So, about everything. So, mindfulness is a new um, term, but that has been practiced for many years. So, you can just search mindfulness and you will find many literature about it. But let's try to apply the simple concept of mindfulness by asking yourself, like, my phone is lying here right now. After the webinar, I might just habitually pick it up, I might just unlock it, and I'll just surf it. So instead of doing that, I might ask myself, do I really need to pick my phone? Do I really need to unlock it? Is there anything urgent that is happening? Is there something scheduled? Yes. Then I open my phone, then I log onto it. I don't want to just blankly or blindly just scrolling through my phone. That's going to be the time waster. So your 101 tip for internet addiction prevention is to be mindful about your internet usage. You're just not going to take it, you're just not going to fall into the trap of impulsivity, right? Next one is going to be your CBT model. Some of you might be aware of CBT. For some of you, the CBT might be a new term. Again, you will find multiple things on the internet, but over here, let's understand in the context of internet addiction, how can we apply it over here? So CBT over here is going to stand for the antecedents. What is the event? The belief. The event that happened has given birth or has arisen some kind of belief in me that's happening in my inside me, and there's going to be a consequences. Your consequences could be something that is spoken, something that is acted out. So your let's say antecedent is someone just took away your phone without telling you. Your belief is going to be, how could they do that to me? They are not giving me time, I have nothing else to do in this lockdown. How could they take away my phone? The consequence is going to be child might abuse verbally, and child might revolt physically also, right? So that's the CBT model. We need to understand what has happened, what has given birth to the belief, and what is going to happen after that. So to apply this on in your day-to-day life, I need you to maintain a log for yourself or for your loved ones, to monitor that if you're noticing something that is off, is it because of the internet or not, right? So just write on your notepad certain things that I'm going to tell you. I want you to make some columns. You just make 5 columns. The first column is um, going to have a title, date and time. The second column is going to be named as event. Okay. The third column is going to be the online activity. Fourth column is going to be your duration. And fifth column is going to be the outcome. This is as simple as thinking through your internet usage. Okay. So you can have your first column named as I logged onto Zoom at 2 o'clock on 19th July. So your first column is fulfilled. The second column is going to be the event. What triggered you to take this action? So it could be that you received a notification on your phone that there's a webinar happening, let me join it, or your calendar gave you a notification ki abhi jao log in karo. What was the online activity that you were doing? I was attending a webinar. The duration, you could, like, whatever, whenever it ends, you can say that I logged off my internet after 1 hour, I logged off my internet after 2 hours, right? And the outcome, was the purpose solved of logging in the internet, right? You logged in for attending the webinar, but you might find yourself that after the webinar you just mindlessly logged into Facebook or some other online activities, and there the duration was exceeded than the expected amount. So this is your thinking through it. So again, this is one basic example of right now situation, but otherwise when you're applying this in your day-to-day life, you're going to notice that there are multiple times when you're just going online without any purpose, just because you heard your phone ping, right? Just because you thought your phone has made a ping, or how you just heard a notification, and then you feel tempted to log into it. So this is going to be your insight. uh, this can be an insight creating activity for yourself every day about your internet usage. So this is going to be very important when we talk about the internet diet next, right? So with the when it comes to the children, we need to understand that how is the child's online and offline world also, and what are the behaviors that are triggering child to go online and seek the pleasure or pleasurable activities instead of going out and playing with the friends. Now I'm going to give it over to Dr. Rahul to explain us, in case of there are, let's say, any comorbidities, or there is anything arising along with internet addiction, because there are multiple things that might, let's understand, can pharmacotherapy be helpful in the internet addiction aspect? Over to you.
So all of you have wonderfully understood how you are going to use therapy to overcome internet addiction. And this is the prescribed gold standard therapy for getting out of internet addiction. So coming to another part to it, because in the treatment for internet addiction is a multimodal treatment. It is not just therapy, but on occasions you require some kind of medications as well. Now, before I tell you about medications, I'll tell you about the questions that are usually asked to me when a parent comes to me. That doctor, my son is so young, or my the daughter is so young, and how should we start medicines for them? So over here, let me say that medication has two roles to play. One part over here will be in the part where, because of the internet addiction, it is, as explained it to you, the biological process, that it has the similar effects to any other addiction. The same thing happens inside our brain. So if the same thing has happened, you're going to experience the same urge, you're going to experience the same kind of withdrawal. And withdrawal means you might get angry, you might not be able to sleep, you might not be able to eat properly, you might be very nervous, restless. So these kind of features, yes, momentarily and temporarily require some kind of support. Now you might ask me why? Why can't this happen on its own? So as I explained it to you, that when the dopamine increases, the serotonin reduces. So this serotonin is responsible for your mood. It is responsible for the way you feel, either comfortable or anxious. So if you're feeling anxious, it is because the serotonin has reduced in the brain. And this is the reason why we need to give you some medications which will increase the level of the serotonin. The next question you might ask me is, are there natural ways of increasing the serotonin? No. Once this has happened, the ideal way, because we need to do it as early as possible without letting the effects get, go on and on in the child or the adolescent, even in the adult. So yes, this needs to be immediately improved, and that is the reason why medications come into the picture. And as Magika told everybody, that the comorbidities such as depression, such as anxiety, such as OCD, these illnesses are extremely common in cases of internet addiction. You could actually have internet addiction maybe as a consequence of that as well. As I said in the causes, that a low self-esteem can lead you to get into internet addiction. And I'll tell you the same case, that the lady, the housewife who came to me, I started her on a mild mood elevator along with a mild anti-anxiety medication. And that lady started showing improvement in a matter of 2 weeks to 3 weeks. And over a period of time, she could, feel comfortable in her own skin, in her own self, which was not possible before. And because of that negativity that she had in the moment. So pharmacotherapy plays an equally important role in getting you out of this internet addiction. So now importantly, another part of the treatment of any addiction for that matter, and particularly in internet addiction, is that yes, you will make thousands of attempts to quit, and this is another criteria to diagnose a person as to get to understand a person whether he's having internet addiction or not. You must have seen this in the reflection activity by Margika as well. So what happens is that you get pulled back into the addiction again. You quit for a few days, you ask people to help you, but then you always get back into it. So you need to have a backup plan to prevent relapse. Relapse is the term that we use for people who get back into the same problem again. So even after we give you the best therapy and the medication, you might fall back into the addiction again. And the most important thing to remember over here is your mindset. And the mindset that is that you do not need to feel you lost over here. You do not need to feel that you're a loser. What you need to remember is that this is an automatic process. We know that this is biological and this is psychological, so it is not something that you're doing on purpose. And this is the reason why we are there to help you time and again if this happens. So you need to also, the second part to it is that you need to make strategies so that this there is a prevention from this too, so that you don't get back into this addiction again. And those strategies can include make up a backup plan that in case you start using your internet again, you automatically your phone tells your friend about it, or you have a zen mode on your phone that you can use again, that allows you to just switch off your phone and then you can't use it even though you want to use it, right? Another concept over here that
Now,
is
just a minute before you get into digital diet. We are running little short of time, so we might need to speed up.
Yes, so let's get things done. Okay, so another concept that is extremely common in the lockdown and a lot of people have been asking me about is that, doc, what do we do in the lockdown phase? Like, come on, we can't stop internet because that's the only source of entertainment right now during this lockdown. So this concept of digital diet has come into the picture, where what happens is that you need to understand that we are not saying, or we are not propagating that all internet is bad. We need to recognize that just like how in our food there is carbohydrate, there is protein, there is fat, and we need to balance everything. Just because fat makes us obese does not mean that we stop eating any cholesterol or anything. We eat it in a balanced way. In the same way, each app has its own use. Just like I would actually tell a lot of my patients that you can play certain games because games gives you a kind of confidence, a moderate amount of concentration. Anything in a limit is good, but anything that goes beyond the limit is always bad. So as I said, each app is like a different nutrient. We need to recognize which apps are empty calories. Just like there is this food that just makes you fat when you don't need to eat it. That's the same way like apps like Facebook or Instagram. Partly it is useful for social reasons, for getting into communication with your friends, but the empty scrolling that you do is again like not something that is useful for you. There are certain things like superfood, like YouTube. You can, instead of using YouTube 50 times a day, or instead of using your mail 50 times a day, make it a limit into using it maybe 2 to 3 times in a day. And finally, remember that what we say is not the ideal thing. You need to make your own plan. You need to make your own understanding about how much you want to do and how much you can control. So over here comes the concept of restructuring. Why? See, on the day one, when a person comes to me, I do not ask them to suddenly switch off the internet and the phone and everything, all the devices, and put them in the lock and key. Because what you need to realize is, consider 20 years back when you did not have anything such internet and so much easy access. Where did those hours go? You would sit with your family, you would sit with your friends, you would go out for a walk, you would do so many things. So that is your offline life, and this is what we are speaking about, that you need to slowly convert the online life into an offline life. So in your online life you need to keep your notifications off, either, or if you have something that is extremely important, work related, like a doctor like me, I can't avoid my phone, so I will customize it to the point where I'll just get notifications that are only important. Whichever highly used apps, log out of them. Keep your night mode on. The concept of night mode is that when the screen on the light on this on your mobile phone or the iPad is low, automatically the brain does not feel highly interested into it. Limit your social media accounts, maybe keep either Facebook or Instagram. Most importantly, keep a realistic goal. Don't just suddenly say that I'm not going to use my phone or my internet for 1 month now and then I'll use it again. Remember that, just like Margika told you about mindfulness, before you unlock your phone, always ask. And a concept that is really fun over here that I tell everybody is use this 40-second rule. The concept of addiction is based on impulsivity. This impulsivity makes us pick up the phone as soon as the phone pings or as soon as we see the notification light on the top of our phone. So what we need to do is just delay that for 40 seconds. We just need to count up to 40 seconds, and then if you feel that you want to still pick up the phone, you may pick up the phone. The concept over here is that when you pick up the phone immediately, you feel extreme, that rush, that dopamine rush that I was talking about. So that makes the addiction more heightened, right? And now coming to the offline part, where you start exploring your interests, your activities, your hobbies, spend time with your family, with your friends. There is an unsaid rule that you have to always keep technology outside, your phones, your internet outside the washroom or things. Make it a very simple rule that in the morning when you wake up, for the first 30 minutes, and in the night just before you sleep for 30 minutes, don't use this, either internet or phone. Why? Over here I'll again explain you a small concept, that the blue light that comes out of this internet, this phone, and these devices is said to inhibit the release of or hormone in the brain called as melatonin. This melatonin is responsible for the concept of biorhythm. If this melatonin is not adequately released in the brain, what happens is that you do not get adequate sleep, and even when you wake up in the morning, you don't feel satisfactory. Chart out your consequences like how Margika has explained it to you in the CBT model, and remember the reinforcement for your young ones. Teach them things. If and most importantly, remember that today, if you don't give them the phone and they start crying, does not mean that you give them the phone, because if you today give them the phone, tomorrow they know that they have to cry a little more to get the phone again from you. So this is something that again children learn. They're not doing it on purpose. They are getting to know from your behavior, right? We are one touch away from a reality into a virtual reality. We have heard about this concept from so many movies and so many things. Just one move here and we will get sucked into internet addiction. So a very small quick test, since we are running out of time, I will read out the questions. You still have your notepad in your hands. Maybe if you feel that you fulfill any of these questions, just write down a yes. So do you feel urges to go online increasingly? A yes or a no. Do you feel that you want to spend a lot of time thinking or planning about using these platforms? Do you use it to forget about your personal problems? Do you try to indulge more in the offline world, but you end up online again and again? Again. Do you become restless if you can't go online? And finally, does your indulgence in the online world has a negative impact on your studies or your profession, depending on which stage of life you are in? So out of these 6 questions, if there is a single yes in your notepad, then remember that you need to fulfill this checklist. You need to follow the point that Margika said. Start becoming aware of your usage and monitoring your usage. There are so many apps, surprisingly, to treat internet addiction. You need to use internet, yes. So start using those apps to monitor the amount of internet that you're using. Once you realize how much and what you're using, prioritize it. Use alternative tasks for the same thing that you can. For example, a lot of people have a habit of writing everything in their phone itself, like a notepad in their phone itself. You can use a small notebook in your pocket, use a pen and paper. That again improves your hand-eye coordination. Coming to a concept of digital detox, this is something that is also common in other types of addiction. Now, you need to understand that digital detox does not mean that suddenly you take a 1 month gap, as I told you. What you need to do is make small goals, make it a rule of 48 hours digital detox. I'm not going to use the phone or the internet on the weekend. So keep your phone away on Friday and pick it up back on Monday. For some people, you might believe, no, weekends are the most important part. Fine, keep it on a weekday. Keep your phone away. You know what are your responsibilities, what are your priorities. You don't need to use the internet so often. Again, there is a concept of vipassana also. I think that is the same thing that happens, but it is a much longer duration, and we don't know how many people can actually do it. Next comes professional help. Me, Margika, we are mental health professionals. We help you with this problem that you are suffering from, whichever stage of internet addiction you are at. And yes, that is the reason why we have therapy. So to summarize, you need to always remember that addiction is not your fault. You happen to come across it because of the biological reasons, the psychological reasons, and the social influences that you have in your life. Once you realize that, restructure your life so that fill the off the stopping the online part and filling up the offline world. You need to balance both the things out. Remember to be consistent. You can't do it that January I will have an offline month and February I'll have an online month. No, you need to be consistent throughout the time. And finally, as I said, it is a multimodal way. You might say that no, I want to get only therapy and I will not take medication, or you might say that I want only medications and I will not do therapy. Does not work. Both the things together is a holistic point, and that is where you will get help. So, before I end, let me ask you a very a quiz type question. How many of you know where is this scene? And answer it on the chat box that is available, and I will answer it maybe in the Q&A round. So we are there for you. We are listening. In case somebody still has things that they want to tell us anonymously or want to tell us individually, you can note down our numbers or our email ID, and you have our Instagram account handle as well, where you can just message and ask us a doubt in case you don't want to ask on this. I hope we are on record time, Margika.
Yes, I think so.
I think since it's such an important topic, we are bound to take more time since internet requires more time. People have already started answering. Yes, Instagram. Yes, that is the right answer. That is something that you see when you constantly refresh on Instagram. Okay, so I hope everyone has noted down the number and the email ID. In case you all want it again, please message it on the chat box and we'll give it to you again. So
And
let's take
not
up.
see any questions per se in the chat box. I have answered one question that had come up earlier. Hello, Rahul.
Yes. I think yes, you have. That was there was this question by behavioral activation is charting and pre-planning activities. Yes.
Have answered
Any
that.
other questions that you all have? I think there were few questions that people had asked even while the invitation was out, and I think we have spoken about the tips to
Yes.
handle internet
Hmm.
addiction again.
Hmm.
So anyone still has a question, you all can unmute yourself or just type in into the chat box. Yes,
You
Radhika.
can go ahead, Radhika, ask.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Good.
I do have one question. So now that we are facing the COVID situation and we have been in lockdown situation for so long, so have you seen any rising trend in pornography which could lead to child perpetrators, rise in child perpetrators and crimes against child? And also, have you seen a increasing usage of people going through dark web and logging onto websites for various illicit crimes? So yeah, that is my question.
So can you repeat your question? What are you trying to ask over here?
My question is that as you explained about internet addiction and what exactly is internet addiction, so my question is, through internet addiction, have you seen a rising trend in child perpetrators of any illicit crimes or usage against that and dark web, and like people use dark web to log in for various purpose and for various reasons? So have you seen any rising trend in that which could lead to an increasing rate in crime rate or cyber crime as
So I would like to point out over here that the COVID situation has per se not actually made it rise, but it has already been on the rise since the beginning. This dark web does not per se directly connect with the pandemic that is happening right now. People who have always been using the internet for such purposes, which I think I missed out on saying about in the types, that there has been a concept of stalking and using the internet for the wrong purposes as well. And again, that is one type of addiction as well. So what you say, there is a direct correlation between using the internet for such activities, for such nefarious activities, but per se, the rise has always been there. There is a
All
question.
right.
Okay, so
Yes, you want to add
Yeah.
something,
yeah,
That
Margika?
no. That's fair because there has not been any prominent studies from psychological point of view that have come up as a breakthrough study so far. So it's very difficult to comment because we like looking at the current scenario, looking at the current research that is out. It seems that it's the same. So we might understand this after effect soon when things will be back on track. There's a question, Rahul, by Karuna. She's asking, internet addiction is seen in elderly people. Any tips for us to help them to reduce the screen time for of them? So I would like to take this question. So Karuna, I would like you to like you have said over here, you're asking for elderly people, and we need to understand that internet has the lucid availability of internet has started with our generation, like the people who are in 20s and 30s. We have seen this availability of internet so easily. Our parents, our elderly people did not have it, so they had an offline world before the rise of the internet. So probably the internet has taken over the offline world. So what we need to do over here is we need to again recreate the offline space for them. So again, you can't just sit and tell them that these are the pros and these are the cons of internet. You need to speak with them, you need to provide alternatives before you get into any cessation of any internet related activity. So I would like you to speak to that person and try to like do some fun activities that you can do together. You're not just going to tell them ki aap ye karo while you're sitting with your phone and gadgets. That should not be happening. You all should have a family digital diet also. All
So
right, so I
I'll
hmm,
add a small tip over here that what we are seeing over here is a rise among elderly using these phones, and that is very common because yes, socially we have grown and we have started spending less time with our elderlies. So that is one way where you can maybe put down your phone and just go and talk with them, and you will realize that as soon as you start interacting with them more and more, you see that they avoid using these devices, because the primary reason they started using this was because they were feeling bored and we only taught them. One part is that. And the second thing that I'll add over here is, in fact, a few of my elderly patients who come to me, I suggest them a few apps or something. So maybe you can, as we spoke about the digital diet, you can maybe teach them that there are certain apps available which are useful to improve the cognition, because when you are growing old, your brain is growing old as well, and automatically your grasping power is reducing and your understanding of things is reducing. So these apps help you keep into focus, like how we tell elderlies to play sudoku, solve the crossword. So this is the same thing that you can do on the phone also.
okay. Rahul will take a last question over here,
Yes.
which is that which age group is becoming more vulnerable to internet addiction, and how has their self-esteem been impacted? Okay, this is again a very opening up to a broader discussion, but in the practice we see all age age groups are vulnerable, but more so the ones who have the easy access to it, right? Our grandparents do not know understand the technology, or they do not have the amazing data packs that we have. So again, those who have the easy access are going to be into it. The peer pressure is going to be always there for all the age groups over here.
So addiction, as
And
we know, is something that happens to us. So we need to recognize on our own that it is happening to us. And how many of us adults realize that we are addicted to the internet? So primarily, this is the reason why in a clinic setup or in a hospital, what happens is it is usually the parents who bring their children, either young teenagers or adolescents or kids in young 20s who have lost their jobs because of this internet, who come to us and visit us and tell us. So yes, usually we see young adults who are going through this, but we need to understand that anybody in any age group can undergo this. As correctly Karuna said, that elderly have been using the phone equally much more, and that usually does affect the way your brain thinks and works as well. So it could be very variable, actually, Radhika.
absolutely. So you over here, I think we should stop with the questions. If there are any further questions, you can
Please feel free
direct
to,
us
yes,
to mail us. We will be there to
available.
answer you.
Yes.
Yes. Over to you, Simran.
Hello everyone. I would request everyone to please turn on their videos so that we can take a group picture for today.
Are we ready? Fine. Saloni, you can give the code of science.
Okay. So I hope everyone had a good time. I would like to thank Dr. Rahul and Margika ma'am to guide us for guiding us so well. Today we learned that internet addiction is a real thing and different types, how it can be seen, how we have to reflect on it. There are different scales through which we can check it, the biopsychosocial model, and the consequences and intervention. So the part where you spoke about the consequences and intervention was most insightful for us as treating the blues. Thank you both for giving us such a wonderful session today. Thank you everyone, all the participants for actively listening and being there with us today. We will be circulating the feedback form. Kindly fill it. Thank you everyone once again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.